Unit 7 or 8, Fitness Testing. Section 1, Reliability. Okay, so today's screencast is going to discuss reliability. It's going to discuss what this term actually means, and then also how we can use reliability to decide on an appropriate fitness test for a client. So if we start off with trying to define what reliability actually is. Well, essentially it's to do with the consistency and repeatability of the results. So if a fitness test that you've chosen, if that is reliable, what it means is it delivers consistent results every time. Now obviously clients' fitness do change over time, and that's absolutely fine. But if a client's fitness hasn't changed, then our fitness test should give us exactly the same result each time. Let's consider an example to make this a bit more simple. So for example, if you conduct a bench press test and then did 6 weeks of strength training with your client to improve their strength, and then did another bench press test, you might expect to see some differences in the scores. What is important though is that there's nothing else impacting those two sets of scores. So for example, if our client scored 50 kilograms before and 60 kilograms after, we want to be sure that the only reason that they've improved their score by 10 kilograms is purely because they've got stronger, and not because some other factors got in the way. And that's what we're discussing when we're discussing reliability. If we want to make a test reliable, we need to make sure that nothing else has contributed to those two scores. So let's start off with something quite simple. Let's talk about reliability of equipment. So in this particular example, we're measuring someone's body fat with some skin fold calipers. So we measure their body fat, and then we decide that we're going to repeat that test 3 times over 5 minutes. Now in theory, someone's body fat is not going to change over 5 minutes. So in theory, we should get the same body fat score each time. However, these are the body fat scores that we got from the experiment. And you can see here that body fat is really quite variable, and this would be considered an unreliable piece of equipment. Because even though the body fat score of that person in theory has not changed, the piece of equipment is saying that it is different. So it's very inconsistent and therefore very unreliable. If we were to get scores like you can see in the green band, that would be much more reliable. And so we now have a reliable piece of equipment. So it's very important that the equipment that we're using gives us reliable, consistent results. So if someone's body fat does change, we're going to know it's because their body fat has changed and not because our calipers are slightly out and they're giving us lots of ups and down readings like you can see in the red boxes. We also have reliability issues if we use different testers. So for example, someone might conduct a hand grip test with the elbow at 90 degrees, as you can see in both of these pictures here. However, if maybe, for example, a different tester was operating in week 2 when the client scored a higher result, maybe they scored a higher result because the client was asked to do the hand grip test with their arm out to the side, and that allowed them to get extra force. And so actually, even though their score has improved by 10 kilograms over 6 weeks, maybe they haven't actually improved their strength at all. Maybe it's just that when they did it in the second week, a different tester asked them to do it in a different way. And again, this is why it's really important with fitness testing. We have a consistent approach to how we do things. The last point with reliability, and there are hundreds more, but the last one is a simple one. If you were to conduct some outdoor fitness testing, so for example, the Illinois agility test with a group of footballers, you might find that in the first time you'd go and do the testing, you've got nice sunny weather. So you've got a very firm ground and the footballers are able to achieve some really good scores. And after 6 weeks, their agility, in theory, should have improved, but perhaps you then have to conduct the agility test in wet weather. And because they're slipping and sliding around, their scores actually are worse. And so again, in order to make it reliable, we have to be able to control the weather somehow. Okay, so there are lots of ways that we can make our results consistent and reliable, but what we've consisted of there, what we've discussed, is making sure that our equipment is reliable, making sure that as testers that we are reliable, and that if we do deal with more than one tester that we do things in the same way, and that also we try and control external factors such as the weather. And this will mean that our results are consistent and repeatable.